Hi, everybody. It's Bob Ost, and it's the True Community Gathering again on Friday, June 17th. It's, I think, our 110th consecutive week of doing these. As some of you may know, and some, if you're new to us, you won't know this, so I'll tell you. We started this in April 2020 as a response to COVID because I was running a not-for-profit theater company trying to help people, and I couldn't help anybody in live and in person. So we figured out that, well, the only way I could do my programs would be on Zoom or some other video platform. So a couple people held my hand and took me into Zoom and showed me that it wasn't as scary as I thought it was. And here we are 110 weeks later. We've had conversations about creating in an epidemic, how to use Zoom in good creative ways. Uh, we've had conversations about if it's on Zoom, is it theater or is it film? We've talked to council members in the New York City Council. We've talked to people with all sorts of resources that were available to people during the pandemic, and now we're moving forward into the live performance world again. And I do want to say that having just gone through a second bout with COVID a couple weeks ago, we're not out of the woods yet. And it's lovely, it's really lovely that we've loosened the mask mandates and people are going around unmasked and being very, very happy about it. I got COVID, so I was masked, vaxxed, and boosted, and I got COVID. So everybody be careful. COVID doesn't care. COVID's there, and it just doesn't care whether you're masked. It doesn't care whether you're boosted and vaxxed. Um, just be cautious and be smart and stay healthy, everyone, please. We love you. We need you. So today we're going to move to one of the topics that started becoming a thing of discussion during the pandemic since we were in isolation and we couldn't make live theater. Podcasts became one of the alternatives that people were talking about all the time. And a lot of people were finding ways to create podcasts. And we had people who are in the podcast business talk with us here. Today, we're going to talk about a specific situation where a playwright, a very interesting playwright, and very successful in many ways playwright, decided that he wanted to make a play of his into a podcast. And sure, I mean, to some of us, it might seem like, oh, well, just have people speak the script and you have a podcast. But I'm not sure it's quite that simple. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to actually bring Sue Zizza and Degas into the room. So hi, guys. Sue is a media expert. She has SueMedia Productions, and she created something called Radio Wave Studios, which we'll talk about. And Andre is our playwright, who is Andre, tell us a little bit about your background, because I'm going to start with you because it all starts with you. It all starts with the play, and it all starts with the writer who decides he's actually going to take the play. And since he can't get a live performance of it during 2 years of pandemic, going to get it out there in another way. So tell us about your background first, Andre.
Okay. My background is black and blue. Anyways, no, seriously, Bob. My last name is Degas, and it's not Degas. I am not that pretentious. First of all, I owe True a big debt because my play, The House of Charity, I read it in many places. It was true and tried. My play is about 6 men of different ethnicity and sexual orientations that are going through a drug rehab. So yeah, and I read it everywhere, and the Dramatists Guild here and there. Just a long story short, worked on it really hard, and I've been a True member since I think 2016 or something. When like icons like Diana Amsterdam, she counseled me on the play a lot, and people like that. And in a True live session, I remember the theater was on 40 something, small theater. I met Bob had a gathering of people who are doing festivals, and there was a lot of great festivals. A lot of people liked the play, but I chose the Strawberry Festival. I think that was it. That it was down at where Crystal Fields at the Theater for the New City. I chose that place on purpose because of the location and the subject matter. So it was really kind of a strategic move. It played there for 6 weeks, and then I continued on for a little longer after that, and then it went on to different things. I didn't think it hit its mark. I didn't think it hit enough people. So I was in the Austin Film Festival with another work, and I drifted into this talk, just very much like this one. And I heard these guys, they're just coming out of NYU. They didn't know what the hell to do with their talent, so they sat around and wrote an audio play, which later became the Homecoming. It's on Netflix. Anyway, they made it. It was very successful, and they got picked up by Netflix, and it went on to become a series. And they were very impressed. I talked with them. I then I started looking. I said, this is where I want to go. I started looking for a producer, and I really struck gold. An NYU professor Joe Guilford, son of Jack Guilford, who's a mentor of mine, um, introduced me to Sue Zizza. And she really she schooled me. I have to be humble about that. She sent me a lot of podcasts to listen. She says, listen, this is a new ball game, and it was
I want to go back to the question though. I mean, what made you think that your play would make a good let me ask you. Let me ask you a question. What made you think your play would make a good podcast?
because it was 6 men, and I figured, oh, 6 men, 6 stories, and the last one, the seventh, would be a limited. The seventh would be the counselor, which is the female counselor, and so I'll do every episode telling each guy's story. So I had to break the structure of the play, which was like had a 3-act structure. I had to break it into like each guy's and a gal story in 30-minute episodes.
So let's just say that you did a complete rewrite of your play then.
Oh hell yeah!
So it's not just like, well, let's take a play and make it into a podcast, is it?
No. And the most important thing was that she told me that to really she like it was like this. Because my background, I mean, I teach film, I'm a filmmaker, and she said to me, like, look, Andre, so it's like this. You wanna give the picture, you wanna write visually, you wanna write audio visually. So it's like, let's see, some people is at a dinner table, and you wanna write that, you wanna evoke that. So you would say, um, pass me the knife, please. And then you would hear the audio of the knife, and you hear the clinking of the glass. Oh, this is a wonderful dinner. You start the scene. So it's the idea of evoking, and sort of bringing in the audio design, which is she's masterful at. And
I want to talk about audio design as well.
yeah, so that was it, and then we have very similar aesthetics, because I don't like blanket sound, like music, boom, 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 throughout the whole thing. I don't want that, you know what I mean? I want to immerse you into the scene. And I think that any kind of music that tells the audience how to feel, it's not my cup of tea. I want the characters to kind of like come out on their own, and the dialogue, and so on. And yeah, I think that's all I got for now.
Okay, let's move to Sue. Sue, first of all, tell us a little bit about your background and about your
Okay,
companies.
so I'm SueMedia Productions, and SueMedia Productions is a audio producing company for all media. And we own in New York City in the Radio Waves building, which is where Nikola Tesla actually in 1896 identified the truth of radio waves. We own the Radio Waves studios, my partner David Shin and I. And I've been producing audio in one form or another for more than 30 years now. I'm a Corwin Award-winning producer. I've won a number of audio awards in the audio book community, and I'm very well known in the public radio community for producing audio stories that focus on, in particular, issues of social social concerns. So I've done pieces about people like Kata Kollwitz, the German graphic artist who stood up to Hitler. I've done pieces about Eugene Victor Debs, the original American socialist. I've also produced tremendously successful audiobooks alongside people like Neil Gaiman. So I've got a career in this industry and telling stories in audio. As I recently said when I was sharing at the Tribeca panel, in the audio storytelling division, is really to me the purest form of storytelling, because once it's out and created in audio, the voice, the sound design elements evoke a different experience for each listener. So Andre's play, he's very clear in what his characters' ethnicity might be, what their sexual orientation might be, but each character's voice might make a different picture in someone's head. And so, really, it becomes much more of a co creation experience when you're working in sound only, because then you invite the listener, especially when it's immersive, you invite the listener in to participate in the storytelling experience. And so the kind of stories I tell,
Sue,
and in,
I have said I'm just a little confused. I understand that Andre created, took a play that was a play and pulled out the individual voices of the five or six characters. I understand you're saying that there's interest there because there's six different voices, but I missed the step in terms of how you create those six voices, other than with casting. Are you just talking about casting?
well, first you have to actually write the play so that it actually reflects the audio medium, which is what Andre started by doing. When he first came to me, he
That's
presented,
what I was going to ask you. So
right,
you were the one who guided him in translating his play into something that could be a
right.
podcast.
He
Okay.
had thought, when he first brought it to me, that he was beginning to adapt his work into an audio format, an audio script. However, after we spoke, and I did give him things to listen to, very specific things to listen to, he could see that there were many wonderful elements that he had captured, but we still had a bit of a journey in terms of the process. And then after we even began to record the material and we began to work with the material originally, Andre had thought that he wanted these episodes to be an hour each. However, as we were really working in post, we found that 30 minutes was a much better um, length for his material, because of the nature of the characters, because of the nature of the story he wanted to tell. So we ended up, and
Well,
with
can I
six,
just say, he took a play that might have been 90 minutes or 2 hours tower play, and his goal was to turn it into 6 hours.
originally, yeah, that was what we originally had
Wow,
discussed,
Andre.
because he had thought in the
An
world of,
ambitious guy. What do you think? What do you
Yeah,
think?
yes,
really.
and in the world of podcasting, in the world of audio storytelling, that's not unusual, Bob. Really, I just finished a 9.5 hour audiobook based on a novel that had 20 characters in it, and it was just, another thing that we do. And in the world of audio storytelling, really, the audience really wants to know that it's not just going to be 1 hour. But in particular, Andre was interested in not reaching necessarily your typical audible listener. He wanted the public radio community. So that meant that we had to look at what length the material would best fit in that world. And now, having been in Tribeca, I believe, Andre, you'll let me know if I'm correct or not, we're even more convinced that the public radio world is exactly where this material is going to live. And another thing that happened was, through the casting process, Andre was very open to actors who were submitting their material. And as a result, one of his characters, who had been male,
This
is
is a good
now
story.
is now female, but
Mhm.
is now female, but this character represents and feels, more male in their representation. And so because the actress submitted only her first initial and her last name, when we were going through our auditions, because now you can take an audition from anywhere in the world. I mean, the world of audio production has just become so much more flexible when you know what you're doing. It allowed Andre to audition actors from all across the country. The lead is from Toronto, and mostly does animation for the Transformers. So but he's the perfect voice. So this young individual submitted their tape. Andre loved it. I loved it. We really thought it was the character. When we met with them in Zoom, it was a woman. And we were like, uh-oh, that's not going to work necessarily. And then Andre was like, now, wait a minute. Maybe this could work, because we do have a world now where people are identifying in other ways. And he found a way to allow that to happen. So the original stage production has continued, because of the nature of audio, has continued to evolve into something that I believe is even more progressive and more going to have more opportunities for people to listen and potentially get something from the story he's telling.
I have
But
a few things I want to ask, um,
sure.
for the edification of our viewers. You Does a podcast have to be multiple episodes, or is there such a thing as a one time podcast?
That's a great question.
It can be a one-time podcast, but then it's called a special. Okay. It's not a podcast series then. And there are some platforms like Audible, for example. Audible has an ongoing series that they record in New York City, where each of the plays that they capture is a one-off. It's just the one episode, because that's all it is, but it's part of a larger series of theater work that they're doing. Okay.
They rented a theater, right, Sue? Tell them
They
about the theater.
bought the Minetta Theater
They
in New
bought the
York.
Minetta Theater. They
Right,
also,
right.
yeah, they bought another theater in LA, and they record the plays there. And it's like you said, it's the whole play, the run of the play,
They record or they'll,
Right.
they did Billy Crudup there. I hope I said his name right.
But
They,
but audio, but that's audio. Those are like audio books that are translated in onto. It's the opposite. I mean, they took things up from audio and put them on stage. Often with like maybe one or two people actually.
yeah,
well, no,
yeah. That's not
actually,
us though. That's
yeah,
not us.
and I could talk more about what Audible's done. They've
Yeah.
actually got multiple different ways that they've done it.
Okay.
In Andre's case, Andre needed a full cast. And so when we talk about podcasts, there's different genres. First of all, there's fiction, which is where Andre's work fits, and then there's nonfiction, or more of the interview documentary, a conversational
Like what this
style.
is, like what we're doing now.
Exactly.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
for
Exactly what this
110
is.
weeks.
yeah.
Exactly what this is. But in Andre's case, what we did was we fully cast and fully dramatized in audio the amazing play that he'd had. And through the process, we came up with a 6-part series in which each of the characters interacts with each other, gets a moment in the spotlight to showcase their story. And we've begun to move it into a place where we can see, does it belong in the more commercial, Audible, download online, streaming podcast world? Or do we want to really keep it in public radio? Because part of what you have to think about is your actors' contracts. Okay. I mean, I do want to mention the business of this stuff,
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah,
because
it's
part
sad.
of
But
because part,
let me take a step backwards for a second, because back when you were talking about your story about meeting Andre, you mentioned that you had him listen to other podcasts, and people in the
no,
room.
I had him not listen to podcasts. I had him listen to specific pieces of work that showed him how other forms, I call myself a transmedia storyteller. What does that mean? It means that I take work from one form, a book, a play, a movie, a short story, whatever it might be. I take it from one form and I move it to another
Can
form.
I
And in
mention
my case,
let me mention an example so that people could know exactly. Sue knew that I'm writing about addiction and alcoholism, right? So she just like very astutely and like surgically said, listen to Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas in this particular recording and see if you can get inspired. You know, I gobbled it up. I not only listened to it once, but I think I listened to it like about 4 or 5 times. And it was like kind of like a beginning of a paradigm. And from that, I kind of saw how I could do my characters, but also drive the story forward. And then at the half an hour mark, leave it at such a point where where it would have like a little cliffhanger so you could come back and listen to the next episode.
right.
And that she taught me, which I and also learned it along the way, and discovered it. And that was like a Nova experience, just like, wow, okay, we could do this. And then this way we can keep them hooked like the old time radio shows, you know, the Shadows and all that stuff.
So can I
And
clarify? Can I clarify another detail?
Yeah.
You said that basically each of the 6 podcasts focused on one of the 6 characters. The other characters are all involved in everything, so it's not solo voices. I just wanted to clarify.
no,
that.
it's ensemble performance. In fact, I can play for you guys if you'd like. I do
We'll
have.
get there.
Okay, I can
We'll get
share
there.
a moment with
Yeah.
it. So in terms of the creation, you know, the business side of the creation, once Andre had determined that he wanted to maintain the multi-voice capability of his cast, he really wanted it to breathe. He wanted it to live. And the reason I suggested Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas in particular is because Jim Jarmusch, the director, directed the audio production of it, and it has incredible actors in it like Lorraine Newman. You might all remember her from Saturday Night Live. Well, she went on to become quite a well-known voice actor in LA. And then there's other people in it, Dean Stanton and others that, you know, were friends of Jim's, and they all went into the basement one day and started working on this thing, and it really became a very, very effective tool for the actual film to be made as well. And for a time when I would go to the Cannes Film Festival, I would find writers who were looking for proof of concepts, and I would help them do sizzle reels and other things in audio only, which is so much more cost effective to make a demo than to actually shoot an entire scene of your film. You know what I mean? So, and my partner David is an Emmy award winning mixer. So we have all the facilities needed to be able to record and produce this work at a really high level, so that when Andre submitted to Tribeca, we got in.
Yeah, that was one of the next steps I was going to go to. We're going to come back to Tribeca in a second. So the thing that I think I'm learning, that maybe other people knew, or maybe they're learning it too, is that when we talk about a podcast, or we talk about translating a play into a podcast, we're not really talking about a radio play. We're not talking about a recording of a play. We're not talking about a one-off, unless it's a special. What was the term you used?
No, we are talking about a recording of a radio play. I mean, really, the radio play format has never gone away. In Europe, it's just as strong as it ever was. And here in the US,
But what I'm saying is we're talking episodic. That's the difference I was.
But a radio play can be episodic as well,
okay.
you know.
Okay.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with, but it is the same form. I just really want to be clear about that the reason it's called a podcast is because it comes off of your iPod originally. It came off your phone, and people didn't have any other form to be able to call it anything. So then it became known as a podcast, just because it came off your iPod. You know what I mean? So, but it's the same form as the radio play. It really is.
Okay, and but what I'm saying, the thing that was eye-opening for me was realizing that, you weren't necessarily looking at taking a play and recording it. You were looking at it, taking a play and expanding it so that it could be it could run over three or six or how many ever episodes.
Well, it depends on the play, Bob. It really depends on the play. There
Okay,
have
so
been
then,
many
so then,
wonderful stage plays that have been done as one-offs, you know. In Andre's case, episodic was the way to go. Each piece should be considered uniquely.
are there different markets for one-offs versus episodic, or are they,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
so
Yes.
can we talk about that for a second, just so people know?
Sure.
Because
So
I
if
know there
you
are people in the room who probably were thinking, I'd like to make my play into an audio piece, and that's a little, maybe a different place to go than a podcast network, or is it?
Well, no, not necessarily.
All
I
right.
mean, that's just the thing, is that all of these things have now blended together. Okay. So where Audible, when they first began, they were audiobooks only. That's all they ever did. Now they have Audible Originals. We spoke to the director of Audible Studios when we were, just recently at Tribeca. So they have different divisions now, where depending on what their audience is interested in. Do they want something that feels like a live play? Then it's a one-off. Do they want something that's going to be episodic? Then it might be something like Andre's developed. Do they want something that's an audiobook? Do they want something that's nonfiction and is going to be informational? So all these different listening possibilities have exploded in the last few years, and it really depends on the material. It always starts with what's best for the material.
Yeah,
So
can
Andre,
I just insert something? Bob, this is for all my brothers and sisters who are writers in this room. This, the Austin Film Festival, there's a lot of film festivals now. Tribeca, this is the third year they're having podcasts. So they're very new to this. Austin Film Festival, which when I first wrote the first draft of the play, I just sent it to them, and I placed 1 out of 1,400s. So I just want to say this for everybody who's writing. If you have a script, you don't have to wait till it's produced. Actually, you could send it to Austin, and I think the deadline closes next week for script for Austin. So if you have a script, you could send it there. And I placed, I think, really close
you
to
were
the
in the
top.
top 9. You were number 9, I think. Remember, because we got those
Yeah.
great notes from them.
Yeah, we got notes from them, and we tweaked according to the notes, and then we went on and we produced and stuff like that. So I just want to mention there's a couple of like cutting edge festivals that take scripts. You don't have to wait till you have it all produced and stuff.
Jane is letting us know that the deadline was extended to July 8th.
Thanks, Jane.
Okay, so I'm gonna keep going back to stupid questions
No, they're not.
that are in my head. Have you, Sue, as a producer, come across scripts that people wanted to convert into audio, and there were things that you didn't think would translate? And what do you do in a situation like that?
Well, because sound is so primal to the human experience, anything, I believe, can be translated to sound. It's whether or not the author can come along on that journey, can come along on that experience.
And
what
does that require from them? What do they need?
It means that they have to let go of the visual component of what they're writing and just be listening to the story. Just be listening without thinking about what it's going to look like, what these people look, they want to hold those images in their heads, but they have to take it off the stage, and they just have to really put it in the ear, because when you're listening to a story, it's much more intimate than when you're watching it on a stage, because it's right in your ear. And so as a result, it really does make you have to stop and think, okay, if I want to define the space, if this moment is supposed to be happening in a kitchen, what does the kitchen look like? How does the kitchen sound? Are we going to open kitchen doors? And the dialogue has to drive the story. And one of the things that I am very, very often challenged with is a writer who will come to me and have to explain everything. We call it "this gun in my left hand is loaded" kind of writing. You know what I mean? Where every single thing is exposition. And I have to say to them, no, this can be translated into a sound effect. And this sound effect can carry the moment for you. This sound effect can enhance the story. And I have to say, that was where Andre really, really, you know, I mean, he was totally into understanding that his dialogue was great. Now we had to define the space. Now we had to use that dialogue to also help the audience see where his characters were.
And also, Bob, just like
Hold until the phone stops ringing.
Okay.
Okay, I
just wanted to mention also something that I've learned that hopefully that I could pass on to. She taught me, or from the experience of working, learned about the use of the microphone. You come that close and you have the character speaking from the voiceover. And if you go that far, the character's yelling, "I want the soup for today. What's going on?" You know what I mean? So it was like, and then the phone rings.
Hold on. Phone went dead. Sorry, everybody.
Okay. So the use of microphone and the distance from it, that was a really, really, like, it's one of the techniques that kind of was learned along the way. And also, for example, I don't know if this is the clip that Sue will play. One of the guys is going through a withdrawal from heroin. So he's like, he's narrating what he went through, is very poetic and blah, blah, blah. But in the background, it's the same guy yelling in pain. So you marry two audio of the character. So now you have his consciousness talking as if it's in flashback, and then he's going through the experience of and then that's laid on top of, the layering of things kind of like gets you into the character's head, which is really like a thing that all writers need to, they love that, because how nice is that to get into the character's head. Anybody who's written, for the stage, it's like when the actor goes downstage and he goes into a monologue. It's the same thing, but this is how we did it in audio. Just wanted to share that.
Well, okay, thank you. I had some questions that I wanted to ask before the phone started ringing. Let me see if there are questions in the chat right now. There's the I'm going to have to cut out. This has never happened before.
I have a good question here in the Scott. Scott's written as a very visual playwright. I would be fascinated to see how stretches of dialogue, free action, and other visual elements would work as audio. So there are a couple of levels of sound design that you want to always be thinking about. There's what's called the ambience, the environmental sound. So for example, right now I'm working on a piece about Tchaikovsky, and the writer has asked me to make sure that we include some nice environmental elements so that there's a sense of where this story is taking place, but it's not so specific. So you have ambiences. And in the case of Andre's play, there are a number of ambiences that we chose to use that allow us to put the characters outside, inside, and in different places in the house as well. Then you have spot effects. These are the specific actions, things like doors opening, footsteps, other kinds of sounds that allow you to move characters in space, so that you can also use your stereo field. Like there's one moment in an upcoming episode where Andre has a character in crisis in this part of the sound design, while simultaneously there's a party going on in another part of the sound design. And it's how you intercut these things. And it's the beauty of sound, because in the world of audio, you don't always have to be in a linear experience. things happen, you know, in the moment. And so you can blend the past, the present, the future. You use signal processing. So there's a lot of wonderful ways that you can use sound specifically. I did put in the chat if anybody wanted to hear the first episode. It's still up at the festival.
You were going to actually play us an excerpt, so
I am going to play you an excerpt.
we could do that now. But we have a question first.
Okay.
Are there any books on radio playwriting that that you recommend? Are there textbooks?
Yes, there's, you know, you could read Norman Corwin's book about audio writing. You know who's written some incredible work is Beckett, wrote for the radio. Mamet wrote for the radio. And these are wonderful playwrights who understood what exactly the voice could tell. What's happened since those individuals primarily were writing has technology has evolved. So if you're really interested, go listen to the BBC every day at 4 o'clock. Every day at 4 o'clock, they put up a brand new audio piece that is very contemporary. Wonderful examples of new plays that are coming out. And in Europe, this form has never gone away. Here in America, it became recently very popular because of the podcast, this, you know, this personal listening device that we carry with us all the time.
So in terms of Andre moving from his play to a podcast, were you the primary collaborator that moved him into this new world, or were there other people involved in your company, or was it mainly you?
It's mostly me.
No, it was nobody else.
Talk a little bit about what the collaboration. What's the dynamic like between you as the producer and Andre as the writer?
Well, first of all, you need to understand in the world of audiobooks, mostly what happens is a book gets licensed, we're done with the author. I don't like that world. I prefer to have the author working alongside me all of the time. I find that the work then is really much richer if I have, and sometimes it's a bit more work to have that relationship there. But I find for my type of stories that I like to tell, there's no way I could bring Andre's story to life if he wasn't there every day listening to all the casting possibilities.
We basically co-directed. I mean, it is
and co-produced.
And co-produced. I also looked for money. I went out and hustled, and we co-directed, and you know, and when we cast, I was bringing people that I know from the stage production, but only a few made it in, and the rest we cast from backstage or from people that Sue knew that really come in, could do multiple, like in crowds or something. Like sometimes we'd have a character do several, because they're several characters, because they're specifically audio people, they could do that. But the casting everything was very collaborative, and I think that it works because she knows about her business and I know about my characters, you know, and you know, so it's like everybody stays in their lane in a certain way, you know. There's a lot of respect for, you know, for each other.
And one of the questions was, who owns it? Well, the audio, Andre and I own jointly, but his original play, that's his still material. You know, whatever he chooses to do with his original play, that's his material. But SueMedia Productions, in association with Nubia Films, is where the audio comes from, and that's
so
how
let me ask you this:
presenting it.
Has it ever happened in the world of podcasts that somebody has written 6 episodes of a podcast and you recorded them and you put them out in the world, and another company comes along and says they'd like to do their version of the podcast?
What do you mean their version?
Take your script and do another version of it.
No, it might go into another form. It might go to Netflix for TV. That I've had happen, or it might go to a physical book. You know, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was originally a radio play for the BBC before it was ever a physical novel. And then he wrote, you know, Douglas Adams wrote many more after, which all became audio then.
So all I'm suggesting there, Sue, is that as a playwright, we write a play and it has the potential of having multiple productions over the years.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, if Andre wanted to have like, so we have what I would call a wonderful cast of working actors in this. Okay. Now, Andre has an opportunity through, I don't know, some other opportunity, and they come back and say, we now want to put, name a famous actor we want to put in there. And we want to put these, we
Daniel
want to,
Craig.
yeah, there you go.
Catherine Keener.
There we go.
Whatever.
We want to put Daniel Craig and Catherine Keener. Absolutely, it can be redone. Absolutely. Now it's day by day, starring, those people. So yes, absolutely, it can be redone. Would it be redone given the investment of time and energy? That's the question.
So, Bob, there's a question that's in the text, and I really want to. I think it's déclassé to get into that, but
we talk about money here. We're a producer.
Yeah, exactly. The budget.
We talk about producer. We talk about labor. That's what we do.
Yeah. So just so you know, we are going at it like a day at a time. So we're raising money as we're speaking. The seed money came from a grant from what was the first one?
It was from the mayor's office at Citibank. It was during the pandemic. We got a little seed money there. Then that allowed us to create a demo, which allowed us to go to the New York State Council for the Arts. And we have a fiscal agent there. So we were able to work with the New York State Council on the Arts. And then from there, we went to private funding. And now it looks like we'll be creating a relationship with a New York State-based university that will allow us to apply for other federal grants, which our fiscal agent cannot apply for.
So what would a typical budget? You don't have to talk about this piece, but what would a typical budget be for a 6-episode podcast?
Depends how many characters you have, because the number one cost are your actors,
okay.
and then you have production costs.
Oh, can you tell us what is the contract that is used for the actors?
It depends. We went with a public radio project contract so that we were able to be most cost effective, because again, Andre thought he wanted to start in public radio. However, SueMedia Productions has a wonderful relationship with SAG-AFTRA. And so typically our first level of production costs us just under $200 an hour for the union actors, plus their H&R. And then depending on if we take it from one place to another, we go from public radio, and we do release this whole series as a podcast. By putting it here in the festival, it didn't kick us into the next thing yet. But if we were to go to another distribution format, we would pay a bump to the actors based on the contract. So it really depends on how many actors you have. If you're regular, if this is something you're doing regularly, do you have anybody who's above the line typically, in the casting? That might cost you more money. So it depends. Every project is unique. You can't hang a standard label on any of this.
But you save a bundle on set and costumes.
Yes, you do. But then you have an engineer, and you have production assistants, and
now we're getting into it. Thank you.
Okay, and you have editors, and so on average, I would say that a half hour, given everything that we brought to it, cost between $8,000 and $10,000
per half hour. So each episode.
Okay. Between $8,000 and $10,000.
You have no idea. It's so enormously helpful for us to hear this.
But then,
I'm sure there are ways of doing it for less money too.
Yeah, and this was really
no way you can do it for less than 8,000. There's no friggin' way with 8,000.
Not if you're working with a good cast of union actors.
And then you're talking about the editing. Come on.
Right. It's the same thing with the. I mean, I've done a lot of original cast albums. I've done a lot of recording. I haven't done audio recording, but I've done CDs and things.
One of the questions asked was how long was the actual time for the actors? It depended on the actor, to be very honest with you. Stage actors that Andre really loved, that he wanted to, that were talented individuals, needed to be needed to come along and be coached a little bit more and brought in front of the microphone a little more directly. So those took a little bit longer to get finally a place where we could get what we needed from them. But not as long as a newbie. So that was a good thing. The voiceover actors, the audiobook actors, the actors that I brought to the production, in and out very quickly, in and out very quickly. And as we continue to work with everybody as cast members, everybody got faster and faster too. So in the world of audiobooks, most narrators begin at 4-1. That means it takes them 4 hours to record an hour of usable material. If they don't pick up their speed and get to a place where they're doing work in a 2-to-1 ratio, they probably drop out of the industry because it's not cost effective for them to be recording and having to redo. So with voiceover character actors, these are individuals who come in ready to go. Maybe you take 2 takes just to make sure there's no pee-pops and you're on your way. Right, Andre?
Yeah. So because I have to go, I just want to mention a couple of things. For me, okay, and I hope that people can understand that where I'm coming from because of the subject matter. For me, the ultimate goal is kind of what Jane Dubin was saying in the beginning, is me and my audience and what I want to get to. I don't give a rat's ass about the Audible or Netflix or anything. I wanted to go to radio so that it could reach to somebody with a transistor radio, some poor alcoholic guy who's sitting isolated in a farm somewhere out in the middle of Florida, and he's following a serial like the olden days, and he could tune into the radio and listen to an audio drama. And that to me that's gold. You know, that's what I want. That's the relationship with the audience, that when I played it at the theater for the New City down in the Lower East Side, it was specifically people from the recovery community came out after their meetings and stuff like this. The theater was packed and they understood these guys. They understood what they're going through. And then the last thing, I just want to say one last thing, and then I'll shut up. You're
my guest. You're supposed to be speaking, but I just I want to leave enough time for us to see the 2 minutes clip.
Be 1 minute.
And I also want to answer the questions from the chat.
Okay, so here it is. The day by day is very different than other stuff that's being done out there, because in my writing, I don't try to sensationalize addiction and stuff like this, like a lot of the younger generation do. Everybody is like, or you see this stuff on HBO and stuff like that, they're raising this stuff. My message is hope, and that people can recover. That's it, enough.
Okay, I'm going to save Greg's question because it's going to have the most answer from you, Sue. But to clarify some things, who owns the IP? We answered, but then Murray's asking it again. So the final recording is co-owned in this particular arrangement by Sue and Andre. The person that owns anything, it depends on who's in the contract.
Exactly. So, and each project is different. Sometimes I'm just a gun for hire. You just come into my studio, I produce it for you, turn it over. What you do with it, you do with it. More times than not, I'm a partner in not only the production but the distribution as well, and we come to an agreement as to who owns what and all before we start.
Okay, and just to clarify another thing, Michael Grover is asking, is that per episode? The $8,000 to $10,000 that you quoted was really for a half hour of audio time.
Yes,
whatever runs
from soup to nuts, exactly. Right.
So when the person is asking about how about for a single whatever, if the single thing is a half hour, it's $8,000 to $10,000. If it's a 45-minute or if it's an hour and a half,
oddly enough, you start by doubling the budget. So think that every half hour is going to be $10,000, an hour is going to be $20,000, 90 minutes is going to be $30,000. Now, are there ways to be really cost effective with your cast? Yes, if you record out of order, you can do things that make it so that people come and go, and $30,000 becomes $15,000 for now 90 minutes. But you have to be a very seasoned producer who understands how to break a script apart. So you're not recording in order, you're recording out of order, just like on a film or a TV is shot.
And Greg's question really boils down to, how does an artist make money off of podcasts?
Distribution. Depends where you, it depends where you distribute it.
So
Who do you sell it to?
So the distribution is up to you, Sue?
Well, in our case, it's between Andre and I. We again, we're in a real partnership. So we decided,
but I would think that you have more information, or had more information than Andre did.
Yes, I do have. Yeah. I do have some more information, but this is an industry that continues to evolve and change. So depending on where you want to go, if you want to go to public radio, that's one. That's one path, and there's one place that when you go to public radio, where you tend to make in terms of dollars and cents is any initial investment can come back to you, plus standard writing fees and things like that. Are you going to make $1 billion in public radio? No, but you may get awareness so that Netflix picks it up and turns it into a TV series. So it really depends, what is your goal and how much do you need to make.
So Don is suggesting that if 6 episodes cost $60,000, let's just say, what are the odds that you're going to recoup that?
Depends on how you did your funding. Andre and I have been pretty successful so far with our grant applications. We've been very successful with our marketing outreach. So I feel confident that the next level is going to bring more of that back in terms of the personal investments we've made.
So a not-for-profit needs to be involved in this particular model.
If you're working in public media, yes, a not-for-profit absolutely has to be involved. However, there were some people who were at the festival who came through that were part of distribution models where advertising was involved. Andre did not want advertising in his production. So it really depends. So what's your platform? Is it Apple? Is it Spotify? Are you on Wondery? Has Wondery seeded the material with advertising, so they're paying you per episode? All kinds of distribution models are possible.
So
we use Twitter.
This was explained to me by Michael Glover, who's helping me with do our podcasts. You can get a certain advertisers. They actually can come in the middle of your piece and interrupt it with an ad.
Exactly.
And that's what you do or do not want to accept. I mean, I'm willing to do that because I don't think it matters. It doesn't matter because this is not. We're having a conversation. Somebody interrupts our conversation and says, buy Brita water filters. Fine. But that's also the only way that we're going to actually possibly get money in the long run. I'm not expecting to make a lot. Michael hopefully will convince me that there might be an other way of looking at that. Can you take the time to show us the clip you were going to show us?
Sure, I'm going to share the sound file with you now. Okay, so this is us. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. So this is us at Tribeca. This is the art, that's been our branded image. And if you click here, you can listen to the full episode. I put that in the chat. But where I'm going to take you right now is to Podbean. Podbean is one of the many services that are currently available that allows you to have a hosting platform. And this allowed us to just put up what we needed to for the festival without giving anything away. So let me just play this for you.
Day by Day is an audio drama in 6 parts. It tracks the stories of 6 men of different ethnicities and sexual orientation during their recovery from drugs and alcohol in a therapeutic community. The program, aptly called the House of Charity, is run by a female counselor who has a secret addiction of her own.
Tonight, we are welcoming a new member, Cody.
My name is Cody, but you all know that already. I've always had problems knowing when to start. So, let me start from the end. Or shall I say the beginning of the end. I wanted to kill myself. I had to find someone to do it. There he is. Perfect. He looked like something out of a Beckett play. Hell yes, that's the one. Smelly, angry. I isolated, hanging out on a lonely part of the platform. Yo, hey man, just come here for a sec. You want to make a quick 20?
What's the gag?
Just push me in front of the train. Make sure it's the A train. There's one coming in 2 minutes. What do you say?
$20, is that all you're worth? I mean, if it's nothing to you, just give me everything you got. You won't be needing it where you're going.
Okay, just here. There's $23. It's all I got in the world.
Money is everything to you people, even in death. All right, go stand over there, right on the edge. Just keep going, keep walking.
No, right here. It's good.
Yeah.
I think I see it coming. It's coming.
Yeah, get close to the edge. Close your eyes. Adios, amigo.
Hey! Come back here! Where you going?
Son of a...
As you can see, I'm still around. Couldn't even kill myself to save my life.
Oh,
He
crap!
probably took the dough and got drunk.
Man, you must have been pissed.
So there you can hear we have a full cast. And I've been reading the chat about Patreon and all of that. When Andre and I first decided to work together, we agreed that we were going to explore all the different possible models. But he continues to come back to wanting this to be available to the widest audience on many different levels, even in a therapeutic environment, because of the nature of the story being told. So I always enter every single project with a brand new point of view. You know, there are lots of different ways that you can go. You can sell your work abroad too. You know, the BBC is really happy to buy American work when it's good. When it's really good, they're really happy to spend money on it. So you do have the possibility of having your work heard in all kinds of places. You really have to start with who is the audience you want. And there are subscription models. You could sell it to Audible. There are other platforms out there now too that are really coming up and going head to head with Audible. So it really depends on where is the work going to be served the best. That's the end of my conversation.
I'm checking out too. Thank you,
Yes.
Bob. Thanks for the
So
opportunity.
you guys have to leave, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we
so
do.
thank you guys.
And
So I'm
RK
gonna-
Green, what's the typical sale to Audible or NPR? It depends on the project. Everything is negotiable. Right, Andre? Everything is negotiable. That's where it all starts.
So since Sue and Andre have to leave, I want to thank them both for being part of this today. Thank you for coming to True.
Thanks.
Welcome
Thank
to
you
it,
for
Sue.
having me today. And I want to put in the email again, SueMedia1@AOL.com. I'm happy to have our conversation with anyone who would like to talk specifically about their project. To try and give big, broad stroke answers, unfortunately, is not satisfying to anyone. I get that. So if you want, please write to me. I'll put together an opportunity to speak to each of you as appropriate. And we'll see, I might send you to other people and say, go here, go there. This is what you need. Okay.
I got to plug Sue. She doesn't sleep. We worked this festival. She showed up in every event. We sat on panels together. She worked with me on the artwork. We're on on Twitter 24/7. It was and LinkedIn, and I mean we worked the platforms because we didn't have the bucks to kind of have a truck outside with day by day on it. But she worked.
Yes,
social
we
media.
don't have the bucks yet, Andre, but they're coming.
Thank you.
Okay, guys.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you to everyone at True for having us today. And, this is an exciting time for audio storytelling. And I do believe that anything that's any good story, no matter where it comes from, can benefit from an audio performance.
So I'm going to wind up with a little bit of speech to my audience. And I want to thank everybody for being here today. I also want to thank my viewers out there. And if anybody's listening to our podcasts out there, if you'd like to be in the room and be part of the conversation and actually ask the questions and talk to my guests, You can email me at trunltd@aol.com. That's TR, like Theater Resources, UNLTD, unlimited. TRUNLTD@AOL.com. Email me and we'll put you on the list and we'll invite you every week so that you can be part of the community. We'd love to have you. And I've lost the screen again. We'd love to have you. And the other thing is we do this all for free. You've heard this before, some of you. We do this pay what you can. And pay what you can mean something. So if you can support us, please go to TrueDonate, TRUDonate.com. That's TrueDonate, TRUDonate.com. And support us with whatever you can. We appreciate any support we get, and we appreciate having you even if you can't pay. We really mean it when we say pay what you can. That's it, and see you next week. Have an interesting discussion next week coming up, and hope you'll join us.